All right, guys, let's start with our second lesson of the week. We're going to start out with a math mystery picture. That's actually not a math mystery. It's just a mystery picture. What do you think this could be? It's got these kind of lines in there. You can look up close. The hint is it's an Italian favorite. So think about that for a second. We'll do the big reveal at the end of the lesson. Okay. So if you can get your math notebook out, we are going to start out with the problem of the day. So get your notebook out and we're going to read it together and then I want you to try and figure it out, okay? It says, Joelle described a two-dimensional shape. It has 4 sides and 4 angles. It has opposite sides that are the same length and are parallel. 2 angles are acute and 2 angles are obtuse. What shape did she describe? Do you guys remember acute little angle and obtuse like a big caboose? Remember that? Okay, so I want you to think for a second and think if you can figure this out. So pause the video and try and figure this one out. All right, let's look back and see what we have. So if I'm going to get out my writing tool, I'm going to say, okay, so it's a two-dimensional shape, has 4 sides, so it has to be a quadrilateral, and 4 angles, right? Quadrilateral right there. Opposite sides that are the same length and are parallel. Okay, 2 angles are acute and 2 are obtuse. So if I'm going to draw this, I'm going to say, okay, well, these sides are parallel. And let's say, oh, let's try this. Let's make that a little longer. And these sides are parallel. If I did this and I'm going to erase that little line right there. Okay, is this angle right here obtuse? It is, because if this went straight up, then it would be a right angle, and it's bigger than a right angle. And I know that this opposite angle is the same. It's also obtuse, and those are equal. What about this one? Is that a cute little angle? Yeah, it's little, right? And this little angle is acute. Those two are the same as well. What is this shape? What is this shape? Opposite sides are the same length and the same angle. So it's definitely going to be a parallelogram. Now, if all of these sides were the same length, what else could it be? If all of these sides were the same length, what else could this be? A rhombus, right? So it's for sure a parallelogram. And it could potentially be a rhombus if they were all equal. But it didn't say all of them were equal. It just said these two are equal and those two are equal. So we know it's a parallelogram. Great job. Okay. Let's identify each of these quadrilaterals. This is just kind of a review. What is this one? Rectangle, right? Because it has 4 right angles. Opposite sides are parallel. And these 2 sides are equal and these 2 sides are equal. This one is a square. What else is it? It's also a rhombus because it has 4 sides that are the same length and opposite sides are parallel. So a square is also a rhombus and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. A square is a lot of things. A square is a rhombus, a parallelogram, a quadrilateral. It's all 4, and a square, so it's all 4 of those things. What about this one right here? Well, it can't be a rhombus because all of the sides are not the same length. But these 2 sides are parallel and these 2 sides are parallel, right? And equal. So what's that one going to be? Parallelogram. Good. Let's see if we got those right. Rectangle, square, parallelogram. We're really good. Okay, what is this? If we just have one set of parallel lines, these 2 are not parallel because eventually they would intersect, right? If you drew a line, say this, let's pretend it went on forever and ever and ever, and this one went on forever and ever and ever, it would intersect right there, right? So just this line and this line are parallel. So that means it's a trapezoid. Really good. Good job. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys open up your book to page 859. 859. Okay? Now, in this lesson, we are just talking about, sorry, I've got to click through till we get there. We're just talking about, I kind of don't love the way that the book shows this. It doesn't seem super organized, but it's just reviewing what we already talked about when it comes to quadrilaterals. So, let's start in the middle right here with a quadrilateral. Okay, here we have a quadrilateral, means it has 4 sides and 4 angles. Every everything on this page is a quadrilateral, right? This connects to everything, and that connects over there. So everything is a quadrilateral. All of these shapes are, because they all have 4 sides and 4 angles, and they're polygons, right? Now, if we go down to the next section right here, parallelograms, here are the shapes that are parallelograms. We have this one, just a parallelogram, which opposite sides are the same, right here. And these 2 sides are the same, right? And they're parallel. That's a parallelogram. A rectangle is a parallelogram because these 2 sides are parallel and these 2 sides are parallel. A square is a parallelogram. These 2 sides are parallel and these 2 sides are parallel. A rhombus is a parallelogram. These 2 sides are parallel and these 2 sides are parallel, right? A trapezoid is not a parallelogram because it only has 1 set of parallel sides. These 2 sides are not parallel, and so it cannot be a parallelogram. So this trapezoid is kind of lonely all by itself. A trapezoid is only a trapezoid and a quadrilateral. Just those 2 things. It's kind of lonely over there. But all of these other shapes are quadrilaterals and they're parallelograms, right? And a square is the one that's kind of funny in this middle part because a square is a rhombus, and a square is a rectangle, and a square is a parallelogram, and a square is a quadrilateral. It's got a lot of things in common, right? So a square is kind of our tricky little guy. He's got a lot going on. Okay, if we look down on this page, it says rectangles and squares share the following attributes. Remember, an attribute, these are the characteristics of a shape or a polygon. These are the things that describe it, okay? Opposite sides are the same what? So the top and the bottom and the 2 sides are always the same what? They're always the same length. Now in a square, all of them are the same length, but these 2 are still the same, and those 2 are still the same. Both pairs of blank sides are parallel. We just talked about it. Their opposite sides are parallel, right? They're the same length, and they're parallel. And there are how many right angles? 4 right angles. So let's go ahead and write those in there. Opposite sides are the same length. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. And there are 4 right angles. Way to go. Okay, next page. All right. A parallelogram has opposite sides that are the same length and both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. So these 2 are the same length right here, and they're parallel, right? These 2 are the same length and they're parallel. It also has opposite angles that are the same size. So it's funny, this angle and this angle, they're equal. They're the same angle. And this angle and this angle are the same angle, right? That's the same size. So you need to draw an example of a quadrilateral that is not a parallelogram. What is a quadrilateral that's not a parallelogram? There's only one. Remember, it was off by itself, all lonely. What was it? Yep, draw that. What is that called? It's a trapezoid, right? Because it only has 1 set. This line and this line, they're not equal size, but they're parallel, right? So we're going to call this a trapezoid, and we're going to say it's not a parallelogram because it only has 1 pair of parallel sides. You can see the one I drew right here. There's only 1 pair of parallel sides. Great. This is pretty easy. This is kind of a review lesson. Shouldn't be too hard. Okay, name 1 attribute or characteristic that a square has that a rhombus doesn't have. What is the difference between a square? So a square is a rhombus, but a square has something that a rhombus doesn't have. A square has to have this and a rhombus does not. What is it? 4 right angles, right? So they both have opposite sides are parallel and all of the sides are the same length. But a square has 4 right angles and a rhombus does not. Okay, we'll write that in a second. This says draw an example of a quadrilateral that is not a rhombus. What would a quadrilateral be that's not a rhombus? So it can't have all sides equal. What could you draw? Maybe a rectangle, right? Because these 2 would be equal and those 2 would be equal, but they wouldn't all be equal. That would be good. Let's look at what we have here. Good. A square has 4 right angles, so let's draw that, write that in there. A square has 4 right angles. A quadrilateral that's not a rhombus would be a rectangle. Because it has 4 right angles and a rhombus does not have 4 right angles. Or a rhombus or square does not have 4, or a rectangle does not have 4 equal sides, right? It can have sides that are not equal. Good. All right. This is what I need you to do, is to work on pages, I always lose my page, 861 and 862. I want you to do these 2 pages, so you're going to, in just a second, you're going to pause the video, do these 2 pages, and then you're going to come back and correct them. I don't want you going over this part of it until you've done it on your own and kind of struggle with it. Remember, when we make our brain struggle a little, that's what makes it grow. And then if you get it wrong and you come back and you correct it, your brain's going to grow even more. And even during online school, we need those brains growing and getting nice and heavy, okay, inside that skull. So, pause the video right here. Go ahead. Okay, so complete the attributes of a rhombus. Opposite sides are what? Opposite sides would be parallel. Opposite angles are the what size? Same size. And the figure is how many sides are the same length? All 4 have to be the same length on a rhombus. Okay. Name 3 other quadrilaterals that have all the attributes of a parallelogram. Okay. So remember when we talked about a parallelogram, when you went back to that very first page, all of them on the bottom that are the same, a rectangle, a square, and a rhombus, all are parallelograms because opposite sides are parallel, right? A trapezoid is the only one that only has one set of parallel lines. Okay, name another quadrilateral that has all the attributes of a rectangle. Well, a square is the only other one that has 4 right angles, and so that one is the only one that's going to have all of the attributes of a rectangle. So a square is a rectangle and a rhombus and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral, right? Square is kind of our special symbol. All right, draw an example of a quadrilateral that's not a square, not a rectangle, not a rhombus. What could be the only one that's not a square, not a rectangle, not a rhombus? What's it called? A trapezoid. Really good. Oh, well, you could also draw a trapezoid here. They drew a parallelogram. Let's look at why. Okay, so they drew a parallelogram isn't a rhombus because these 2 sides and these 2 sides are equal, but not all 4 of them the same size. You could also draw a trapezoid right here. That's what I was thinking of, because it's a 4-sided figure, right? It's not a square, not a rectangle, not a rhombus. So you could draw either one, okay? So you could draw a parallelogram because it doesn't have 4 right angles or 4 sides that are the same length. Or you could draw a trapezoid, say, because it only has one set of parallel lines. All right, you could do either one. All right, let's look at our last one. State whether the statement is true or false. If it's false, you have to say why. So all parallelograms have opposite sides that are the same length and parallel. Okay, let's draw that. Let's draw opposite sides are the same length-ish and parallel. Is that true? Okay, yep. Opposite sides have to be the same length and they have to be parallel. Okay, since rectangles are parallelograms, that's true. If I draw a rectangle here, that is a parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel, right? Since all rectangles are parallelograms, all rectangles have opposite sides that are the same length and parallel. Is that true? Yeah, opposite sides are the same length and they are parallel. I think that is true. Good, really good. All right, let's look at this one. All squares have 4 sides that are the same length. Okay, you're right. 4 sides, same length. Since rectangles are squares, all rectangles have 4 sides that are the same length. Is that true? Do all rectangles look like this? No. This one you have to reverse these. All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles have sides that are the same length. So is that true or false? False, right? Because you have to switch those 2 words. Good. A rectangle is not necessarily a square because rectangles do not have to have 4 sides of the same length. A square does, but a rectangle does not. Okay, circle the quadrilateral that does not belong with the other 3. Which one of these looks like it doesn't belong at all? Well, I would say it's this one right here because every other quadrilateral has at least one set of parallel lines. Are there any parallel lines here? No, because if you look at this, if I was going to draw this forever and I was going to draw this forever, eventually they would cross. And if I draw that forever and that forever, eventually they would cross. So this shape right here does not have any parallel lines. There are no parallel lines in that one. So I would say that one does not belong. Good. It's the only one that doesn't have at least one set of parallel lines. Okay, how is a parallelogram a special kind of polygon? How is it special? Well, I would say that it's a closed figure, right? That makes it a polygon. Has 4 sides, they don't cross each other. Has both pairs of opposite sides are parallel and the same length. Great. Okay, if you want to do your homework pages, that's always a great idea. Should we find out what our mystery picture is? Let's see if I can find it. Mystery picture. Okay, what was your guess? What did you think it is? It's pasta! Look at, so if you did a really close-up picture of these noodles right here, it would end up looking like this. Super close up. That's kind of cool. All right, guys, go ahead and turn your work in when you get it done. This one should be pretty easy because it's just kind of review from our last lesson. If you have any questions, you can email me. If you need a FaceTime anytime, I'm happy to FaceTime. We can go over things. And I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget that on Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we're going to be doing a Zoom class. So make sure that you log in for that. It was really fun to see everyone last week. Or no, it's not Tuesday. Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Sorry. Tuesday at 11 is literacy. Wednesday at 1 o'clock is going to be our class. So don't forget to Zoom in then. All right. See you later.